Good afternoon. This is Debbie Hart, the President and CEO of BioNJ. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on our latest industry study, Life Sciences in New Jersey, Looking Beyond Biotech. We're honored that so many of you have taken your time to join us. This study comes from the brilliant work of a great team that included our partners EY, formerly known as Ernst & Young, the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University, and the Office of Research and Information at the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. We are very proud of this document and excited about the metrics and messages it contains. So a little rationale for this study. The study represents a first-of-its-kind comprehensive analysis of the economic impact of the life sciences sector to New Jersey's economy. This report is in part meant to rebut Ben Franklin's infamous pronouncement that New Jersey is a barrel tapped at both ends. All too often, reports analyzing the life sciences industry have followed Franklin's notion by dividing New Jersey along the Metropolitan Statistical Area boundaries, or MSAs, of New York, northern New Jersey, and the Delaware Valley, which incorporates southern New Jersey. And unfortunately, any analysis utilizing those false borders that splits us into two does not accurately depict the strength that is New Jersey. But, as Dr. Franklin also said, energy and persistence conquer all. And so with this report, we've put our energies into providing a perspective that we believe gives New Jersey its due in the life sciences. As your host today, I have the honor of providing a couple of the study's highlights, and later we'll discuss some of the recommendations for action. So here in the room with me, I'm backed by an array of experts who will take a deeper dive on the data. In their speaking order are Tony Torrington, Partner, Assurance Services, Northeast Life Sciences Assurance Leader at EY. John Arrett, Labor Market Analyst, Office of Research and Information at the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Also from the department to help with questions is Frank Verdetta. Frank is Senior Administrator, State of New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Division of Workforce Research and Analytics, and Bureau of Labor Market Information. And finally, Will Irving, Research Associate at Rutgers University. Will is the able partner of the renowned Dr. Joseph Seneca of the Blaustein School. Unfortunately, Joe could not be with us here today, but he's well represented by Will. He's actually teaching a class, but he was a major collaborator on the study, and I do want to take a moment to thank him for all of his contributions and insights. So a bit of housekeeping before we begin. This is a listen-only webinar, and we encourage you to submit questions via the dialog box on your computer screen. We have a good-sized group on the line, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible at the end of the presentations. If we don't get to your questions, I promise that we will follow up with you after the webinar. Also, there will be a recording of this webinar on the BioNJ website, bionj.org, beginning tomorrow. So the methodologies and definitions. As we have for 10 years now, or more actually, BioNJ and EY conducted our standard survey of the New Jersey biotechnology industry for calendar year 2013. The survey's results included responses from early stage to well-established companies. Where possible, those data were benchmarked to previous years to help identify trends and compared to data observed on a national and global basis, as noted in EY's 2013 Beyond Borders Biotechnology Report. And as we do with each study in just a moment, we'll debut the growth in the number of companies in that sector. What's new this year, though, is given that the life sciences industry is broader than biotechnology, in concert with our partners, we reviewed data including biotechnology, pharmaceutical, and medical device companies, as well as other ancillary service providers here in New Jersey. So in addition to the EY report, we've added an economic impact study for the whole industry conducted by the Blaustein School at Rutgers, and a comprehensive report by the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. We've also included both members and non-members of BioNJ. So we've really captured the entire industry, and we'll do that forthwith. One important note, the department and the Blaustein School use slightly different data sets, and the differences are documented throughout. So let's get started. I want to provide a couple of highlights. I definitely don't want to steal the thunder from any of our partners in delivering their respective data. However, I do want to take the opportunity to share 3 exciting metrics. As promised, I'm happy to debut the growth in the number of biotechnology companies. Using a very strict definition and narrow definition of biotechnology companies conducting R&D in the state, that number has increased from, drumroll please, from 340 in 2012 to 379 as of today, an increase of 12%. So that is a very narrow but very encouraging view. I will tell you, too, that 3 out of the 4 respondents expected to hire personnel in 2014. Meanwhile, the third exciting metric is that the Blaustein School at Rutgers reports that total gross domestic product generated by the industry in New Jersey in 2012 is $33.5 billion with a B, $33.5 billion, and that represents 6.3% of the total GDP for the state. Will Irving will share more on that. And with that, it is time to hear more from our experts. So our first panelist, Tony Torrington, will present the EY perspective on the industry. Tony's been working with us at BioNJ on this study for over 10 years and has served as an advisor to the BioNJ Board of Trustees since 2010. Tony has over 20 years of experience serving principally high-growth life science companies at various stages of development. Tony, if you will, please.
Thank you, Debbie. And you know, as we've talked about, we've participated in this study with BioNJ Jersey for over 10 years, and I have to say that I'm so proud of the quality of this product, particularly with the help of our friends from Rutgers and the Department of Labor. I think it's a really encompassing, well-drafted document. I think you should be proud of it. So let me just talk about our section. You know, as I said, we've done this for over 10 years now, and historically, what we would do from a process perspective is we get a database of companies in New Jersey. We have the assistance of our quantitative analysis group down in D.C. send out questions, a list of questions that by design we have not changed over the 10-year period, and the purpose there is to see trends and changes from those that are responding to the questions. And you know, there's some exciting data. Debbie did steal my my thunder and my one slide that has some good data. But before we flip to that slide, Erica, I probably should have put this slide in the deck, but I wanted to highlight that, you know, for the past 10 years, we have one question that I wanted to highlight that is the respondents have historically been very high. And the question is, are there sufficient managerial personnel in New Jersey to meet my needs? And since we've been doing this data for the past, this questionnaire for the past 10 years, it's always been at a very high rate. This year was 92% of the respondents said yes, there are sufficient managerial personnel in New Jersey to meet my needs. And that's pretty consistent throughout. So Eric, if you could turn the slide. So the one slide that, you know, 3 out of 4 respondents did anticipate, and they responded yes, they anticipate hiring resources in the coming year, and that year is 2014 for this study. That's clearly a positive sign. So what's driving that companies in New Jersey to have such a positive, we're expecting to hire response? And I think a lot of that is largely due to the historic capital raise that happened in New Jersey. And Erica, if you turn the slide, please. The slide here is obtained from data from VentureSource. That's a third party that EY has a license to. We pull the data, and it's largely for biopharmaceutical companies, and it's privately funded data. It's not, you know, if you're a public company and raising public funds, that data is not included in this. And this is really trying to get a sense of you know, how much capital is being invested in New Jersey. And I said it's for private companies. It does include capital raised in initial public offerings, and really that's what's driving this spike here. So in 2013, it was just a tremendous year for IPOs. And I know we're in September of 2014, but you know, you still have to take a historical look at, you know, what's happening in the New Jersey marketplace. So what was driving this, you know, tremendous IPO marketplace? And I think there are many factors to play. From a national perspective, there were 39 new drug approvals, which is a historic number in the U.S., which is helping restore investor confidence in the sector. You've got this continuing U.S. Federal Reserve monetary policy of keeping interest rates low. You've got investors that are seeking higher yields, and broader optimism from market generalists, and what you have is an IPO window in 2013, and it's continuing in 2014, not at these numbers, but very significant. Just from data points, there are 41 IPOs in the U.S. that raised $3.5 billion, and that compares only to the genomic bubble of 2000, where there were 49 IPOs at $4.3 billion. So New Jersey, we had 7 companies that completed the IPO process. PTC Therapeutics and Biotech were one of the 2 of the largest capital raises in all of the U.S., and that's generating close to $600 million of funds in New Jersey. And from a historic perspective, post-economic downturn of 2008, as I analyze the data of money raised in New Jersey, typically it's between that 350 and 550 range, as you can see in the slide there. And certainly, almost over $900 million is pretty impressive. So if you want to dig into the data a little bit deeper, what are the kinds of companies that are raising money? We did do some disaggregating, and we're trying to get a sense on how investors are investing in New Jersey. That is the funding supporting investments of existing companies with later stage assets, or is this funding supporting early stage preclinical? And what we try to do is analyze early stage and late stage investing. Early stage research is either seed funding or Series A funding, and late stage would be anything Series B and higher. And as you can see, clearly New Jersey's strength, as we're going to highlight today, is the people in New Jersey that can commercialize and develop drugs, and that you can clearly see the strengths being highlighted there. Obviously to have a late stage product, you need to have early stage investing, and that's an area that I think we will continue to focus on and try to spur the investment in early stage research in New Jersey. And I think an example of that is the recent merger of Rutgers and BioNJ. We're hopeful that's going to have an expected significant impact on basic research and technology transfer. Just to give you a size of how big the new Rutgers is now, just in 2011 dollars, the combined research of the 2 institutions was over $700 million, which places Rutgers number 24 among all U.S. universities and 16 among public universities. And with that sort of budget, it actually ranks higher than Harvard, Northwestern, and University of Illinois. So clearly something special is happening there in early stage research, and we're going to continue to focus on that. But the strength of New Jersey is in the talent pool to develop and commercialize drugs. And with that, Debbie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Terrific. Thank you, Tony. So moving on to our second presenter. This study would not have been possible without the many contributions of the talented folks at the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. And we're fortunate to have with us today, again, John Arrett and Frank Ferdetta. John will be presenting. John is a labor market analyst for the Bureau of Labor Market Information in the Department's Division of Workforce Research and Analytics. The division is responsible for producing labor market information such as the industry and occupational employment projections, key industry reports, labor market views, and occupational wage data. As the Bureau of Labor Market Information's industry analyst for New Jersey's biopharmaceutical life sciences cluster, John tracks and monitors activities within the sector. John, can you please highlight your findings?
Thank you, Debbie. First of all, I want to point out what the definition we're basically using, and that is the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development's Office of Research and Information takes a holistic view that defines life science as a term used to focus on life processes. This process involves the scientific, analytic, and diagnostic research and development activities that advance drugs, supplies, medical equipment, and includes the production and distribution of its goods and services that collectively contributes towards improving the quality and standard of life. Using the North American Industrial Classification System, known as NAICS, ORI compiles most of its data from the quarterly census of employment and wages, to analyze data from establishments primarily engaged in the research and development, manufacturing, and the delivery to get to the products and services to the marketplace. Looking at the employment, you can see that the New Jersey Biopharma Life Science Cluster employed an average annual 116,548 workers in 2012. This cluster employment over the 5-year period of 2007 to 2012 experienced a decline of 12.3%. It's noteworthy to mention that New Jersey's life sciences employment in 2012 accounted for 5.5% of the nation's life science employment. Not surprisingly, the pharmaceutical component accounted for the majority of the decline, followed by medical devices. The biotechnology component, however, grew over the same period and represents a larger portion of the total employment in the cluster as compared to 5 years ago. Some of our findings show that pharmaceutical over the 5-year period experienced a loss of 23.3% of its employment. This was due in large part because of the mergers, which included a few mega mergers of companies with significant operations in the state. The pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing industry groups experienced the most losses of jobs, while at the same time, over the same time period, the drug wholesalers had the most employment gains. It's also noteworthy to mention that New Jersey's pharmaceutical workforce in 2012 accounted for 8.9% of the nation's pharmaceutical workforce, and the pharmaceutical and medicine industry group's employment represented 9.9% of the nation's workforce. The medical devices experienced employment losses in navigational, measuring, electromedical, and control instrument manufacturing over the 5-year period, while medical equipment and supply manufacturing jobs increased. The biotech sector's employment growth was mixed in R&D industries, while medical and diagnostic laboratories grew over the same period. Again, I want to point out and highlight that New Jersey's biotech workforce in 2012 accounted for 4.8% of the nation's biotech workforce, and its R&D in physical engineering and life sciences industries employed 4.9% of the workers. In terms of establishments, the New Jersey's cluster's establishments increased by 181 facilities, or 6.3%, between 2007 and 2012. This growth was led by biotech establishments, which increased by 10.3%, followed closely by pharmaceuticals, which grew by 9.1%. In many respects, the tracking of these establishments as compared to the total number of companies is more insightful. While employment runs in cycles, maintaining, expanding, and attracting new business establishment helps to ensure employment opportunities will exist now and in the future. It can also yield a better measure of the total impact, economic impact, that the cluster has on the state's economy. In addition, understanding and knowing the types of activities that are taking place helps to determine how and where to invest to ensure workers have the necessary skill sets needed by the business community now and in the future. In 2012, there were 3,042 establishments in this cluster, and that's up 6.3% from 2007. In the pharmaceutical component, pharma and medicine manufacturing declined over the 5-year period, while the drug wholesaling realized an increase. In biotech, all its industries realized gains. In medical devices, over the 5-year period, it was mainly the medical equipment and supply manufacturing that we saw losses of establishments. And lastly, wages. Although the total number of workers decreased due primarily to the number of pharmaceutical jobs shed over the last 5 years, mostly because of reorganizations, the cluster's statewide annual average wage was $126,794 in 2012. That was 118.3% higher than the state's total private sector average wage of $58,093. The cluster's 3 components all had wages that were significantly higher than the state average wages. Medical devices was 62.9% higher, biotech was 128.2% higher, and pharmaceutical was 137.5% higher. High wages is an important index of the value of the life sciences to New Jersey's economy and its contributions to the state's revenues from payroll taxes. Therefore, it's noteworthy to mention that even though this cluster's employment only accounts for 3.6% of the total private sector workers in the state, it's nearly $14.8 billion in annual payroll in 2012, accounted for 8% of the state's total private sector wages. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, John. So now we move to our third presenter, Will Irving, who's coming to us off the big Rutgers win on Saturday. Go Rutgers over Navy, and congratulations to our Scarlet Knights. We're so proud. So at the Blaustein School, Will oversees and conducts research and analysis for the Rutgers Regional Report and other projects and publications. He's co-authored economic impact studies for numerous private and public sector clients. The work of the Blaustein School, you may know, is highly regarded in New Jersey and beyond. So please, Will, if you would, tell us about your numbers.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you to our colleagues from Ernst & Young and from the Department of Labor for the opportunity to work together with you on this study. Our portion of the study seeks to estimate the size of the life science industry's contribution to the state economy as a business sector. So what we've estimated is the impact that the industry's ongoing operations, including employment, payroll, purchases of supplies, equipment, and other services have on the state economy. And our first step in this process is to define what we mean by the life sciences industry. And our definition is quite similar to that used by the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, which John has just described, with the exception of distribution and delivery services, which we do not include. Our industry definition for purposes of this analysis focuses on core activities concerned with research and development and production. So these are industries that generate or develop life science technology, knowledge, and products that are commercially developed in extensive geographic market areas well beyond New Jersey. And they are listed here on this first slide. And you can see that they focus primarily on manufacturing industries and, of course, research and development, which accounts for which, along with pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing, accounts for the vast majority of the 66,451 jobs in those industries in 2012. In addition, you can see that together these industries accounted for close to $10 billion in wages and salaries, total wages and salaries, associated with those 66,000 jobs in 2012. So you can see that these are high-wage industries, as John described, and those high wages and high levels of expenditures will drive the impacts that I'll describe in this presentation. So based on this estimate of 66,000 jobs and $9.9 billion in wages, we use what is known as an input-output model to estimate the additional so-called multiplier or ripple effects of the industry's total annual expenditures as they ripple through the broader economy. This model, the input-output model, breaks the economy down into 463 component sectors and their interrelationships with one another. And so in this way, the economic impact of the operations of a given industry, in this case life sciences, or expenditures on an individual project or investment can be traced through all the other sectors of the economy, allowing for an estimate of both the direct effects, that is the industry's direct employment, payroll, and expenditures, and the indirect effects as these initial wages and other expenditures ripple through the economy, becoming wages and business expenditures and income for other industries, and so on. So for example, if the life sciences industry were to spend $1 million into the economy, and we estimate that $300,000 of this goes to workers' salaries, that income for individuals would go into the household or consumer sector in our model, and is then spent again on cars, services, food, real estate, and everything else that households spend their money on, which in turn become revenues and incomes for the sectors in which these individuals have spent their money, and in turn again generate further employment, output, spending, and income. The other part of that $1 million, the $700,000, is spent on supplies, materials, and services. In this case, one would think of lab equipment or other consulting services purchased from other industries, in other words, business expenditures. And these, again, are assigned to their respective business sectors in the input-output model and become, again, salaries, profits, and other input purchases for other industries, generating further employment and economic activity. So, using this methodology, we estimate that in total, the expenditures of the life sciences industry in New Jersey generated in 2012 212,556 jobs. And in other words, those are jobs, those indirect jobs of 146,000 indirect jobs are in all other sectors throughout the economy, in addition to the original 66,000 jobs directly created in the sector. Further, we estimate gross domestic product in total generated by the industry at $33.5 billion. Total compensation generated by the industry, again both direct and indirect, of $20.3 billion. State tax revenues of $1.5 billion and local tax revenues of $1.4 billion. To put some of these numbers in perspective, those total jobs, total estimated employment impact of over 212,000 jobs represents approximately 5% of the total employment in the state. And the $33.5 billion in gross domestic product for 2012 represents approximately 6.3% of the state total for that year. Thank you. Debbie?
Terrific. That is terrific. Thank you so much, Will. So if I may summarize, we heard a lot of good news today. So the direct and indirect total number of jobs, 212,000, equaling $23 billion in total wages. 66,000 industry jobs alone. The number of establishments are up. $1 billion in wages, just in the industry, total wages are up. $33.5 billion in GDP in New Jersey. We moved from 340 to 379 biotech companies, 3/4 of which were set to hire in 2014. It's difficult not to be optimistic about the past and the future in biotechnology and life sciences in New Jersey. So with that, I'd like to move and very briefly talk about some of the recommendations that you'll see in the larger report. So because patients can't wait and because at BioNJ we are impatient for patients, New Jersey needs a best-in-class national innovation ecosystems model. To that end, again, we've outlined some recommendations in the study. I won't go into all the detail, but I will touch on them very briefly, and they are in the following categories. To create a life sciences hub, to engage stakeholder integration and coordination, to develop tools and databases, to remain a leader in terms of our policy and funding initiatives, and to bolster what we currently have. As we know, this is a difficult industry. It takes 10 to 15 years and $1 billion to bring a drug to market. That's a lot of cash. Corporate involvement, making sure that we are leveraging our great strength by developing New Jersey-focused funding vehicles from corporate and other sources. Funding in the area of marketing, communications, and advocacy. We must leverage the great work of the state's Business Action Center, and as well as Choose New Jersey, and formulate and share economic development and life science industry metrics appropriate for the state of New Jersey as a whole, such as what we're doing here today. We need to make sure that they include really basic and core messages about the strength that is New Jersey. So as we've heard, the life sciences industry in New Jersey continues to be an economic powerhouse. We believe the future is bright, but certainly not without concern for how it will be funded and the recognition that New Jersey needs to do more to leverage its great strength. So with that, we will move to your questions. And again, we have a rather large group on the on the phone. We do have some questions that are accruing here, and we will take as many as we can, and if not, we will, if we don't get to them, we will certainly follow up with you afterwards. In the meantime, I would remind you that this study will be available. It has been sent out to the community, and you can view it at bionj.org, as well as this webinar will be up tomorrow. So we would invite you to visit our website. So some of the questions, one is, can we have the slides? And certainly we'll be happy to share them as well. Erica, we can put them on the site as well, right? Okay. Okay. So, one of the questions is, how can you be so optimistic when there have been, layoffs in the pharmaceutical industry? Clearly, we are concerned. We're very competitive here in New Jersey and at BioNJ. We don't want to lose one job. And at BioNJ, our talent network, in our collaboration with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, we are committed to helping every one of our talented individuals who've been downsized by Big Pharma or other companies. We are committed to helping you find jobs. While it is true that there are challenges in the past and certainly ahead, there are many reasons to be optimistic with the continued increase of the biotechnology industry and all the great news you heard today. New Jersey has so many great strengths that work to attract these companies, including, certainly we've heard about the great talent that we have in the state. We are located between the world's financial center in New York and the FDA in D.C. We have tremendous academic institutions bolstered by the recent merger of Rutgers and BioNJ. We have a very supportive state government. We have tremendous assets, in regard to lifestyle and our educational system in New Jersey. The Business Action Center in Choose, New Jersey, their strategic focus on attraction, they've had some really big wins in the last couple of years. So again, it's hard not to be optimistic, but we do know that we have work to do. And I would thank you for that question. So, what kind of jobs where do we see the growth? Our experts at the table, please.
Well, basically, it depends on what areas you're talking about. But if you're looking at medical affairs and research and design, we're looking at the biostatisticians and statistician positions as growing. We also see growth in medical writers, for example. If you go into the areas of, say, the corporate functions, you're looking at software application developers are in high demand, as so are regulatory affair specialists. If you look at different ones such as sales and marketing, especially via the web, specialists are really in high demand. And as far as production engineers and managers. Does that answer your question?
I think that's great. Yes. Okay. We do hear that one of the areas that we're seeing more and more requests for project management type skills, and also regulatory. Regulatory is one of the key areas as well. Let's see. There's a question here. What is the current administration in Trenton doing to support us? I alluded to one of the specifics a moment ago, and I'll just maybe dive a little deeper into that. If there are folks on the phone who'd like to utilize some of the services of the talent network. So the Department of Labor funds a number of talent networks throughout the state, and we have one here at BioNJ for life sciences. It's been a really, we think, effective way to help companies find people and people find companies. And there are a whole cadre of resources that are available to our community, whether members or non-members, including job listings on the website, career fairs, coaching, training, helping folks with coaching, helping them network, et cetera, where we offer a Biotech hub event, networking events, et cetera. So again, a lot of services in that regard that we welcome anyone's participation in. So we are looking at the questions here, trying to figure out who's answering what. Apologize for the silence. So here's one. How much does New Jersey attribute the relatively flat biotech growth, let alone the pharma job decreases, to biotech development initiatives in Maryland, Mass, and New York City? How might New Jersey improve its competitiveness with nearby states? And as you would imagine, that's something we're always thinking and talking about at BioNJ, and certainly with our state partners as well. You know, it is a very competitive landscape out there. It has been for a very long time. And we think that New Jersey's come a long way in terms of telling the story, the biotech, life sciences industry story. And, but certainly there's always more that can be done. What can New Jersey do to encourage startup activity versus funded biotechnology companies? Clearly, it's important to work at both ends of the spectrum, and I welcome my colleagues around the table who might want to add to.
Yeah, Debbie, it's Tony. I think, you know, New Jersey is doing a good job of trying to keep companies in New Jersey. I think, you know, if there's a silver lining for what can they do to encourage startup activity, it's that entrepreneurial spirit that we're trying to capture and leverage here in New Jersey. And, you know, so long as entrepreneurs and risk takers are out there looking for drugs and ways to develop drugs, you know, I think you're going to get company formation and continued growth there. So I think a big push of New Jersey to keep the entrepreneurial spirit of risk takers in New Jersey would be important.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So we have a question where about the 2013 data, 2013 versus 2012.
So for the Rutgers portion, the economic impact portion of the study, at the time that we conducted the study, only complete data, annual data for the year 2012 had become available. As John mentioned, much of the underlying data that drives these analyses, both ours and that of the Department of Labor, comes from the quarterly census of quarterly census of employment and wages put out by the U.S. Department of Labor. The quarterly census releases data on a quarterly basis, but lagged by about 3 quarters, so that it's only toward the end of the subsequent year that you finally have a full year's data for the preceding year. I believe just recently the full 2013 data has been released, but was not available at the time we conducted the study. Unless there are significant changes to the structure or size of the industry year over year, we would expect the contribution, that is the economic impacts on an annual basis of the industry, to be consistent and to move in a fairly linear fashion with the magnitude of the size of the industry. So our impacts as estimated based on the size of the industry in 2012, if the size of the industry would double in the next year, we would expect our impacts to double. More likely the industry has grown slightly or held about steady, in which case we would expect our estimate of the impacts to remain about the same on a year-over-year basis.
Okay, thank you, Will. So we have a question. EY's Beyond Borders emphasizes interactions with healthcare delivery, hospitals, patient care, translational research, etc. Does BioNJ look at these aspects of drug development and patient care? And I can happily say that in fact we do. For the last year or so, we've added hospitals to our membership. We are talking and thinking strategically and otherwise more and more about, you know, what we do every day is about patients. Again, we talk here at BioNJ internally and externally about the fact that, you know, patients can't wait, and what we're doing is supporting our companies to deliver therapies and cures to patients. So in fact, we are looking at the whole picture. We are looking more and more and discussing strategically with the community, hospitals, universities as well, at translational research. In fact, if you're not aware and you'd like a copy, please do email us, bionj@bionj.org. But we have a master service agreement that we worked very collaboratively with Rutgers directly, and then we also, Rowan has endorsed it. We have a master service agreement for clinical trials to encourage clinical trials to happen here in New Jersey and for them to happen with public research institutions and other institutions. So it's a template that you can use when launching clinical research, again, to hopefully keep your research in New Jersey. So again, we do have some very strategic and specific initiatives around all of those categories. Happy to share more information if anyone would like to follow up. Let's see, so you can. There's a comment that New Jersey should have some more real-time data. And I would look to, not to put you on the spot, but John and Will maybe to talk about that. Obviously, it takes time to get these data together. Or Frank, would you like to speak to that, please?
Well, as Will mentioned, quality sensitive employment wages is the census of all employers in the state. So it does take 6 to 9 months to get a quarter's worth of data out. In addition to that, all our data, we work in conjunction with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the data, all surveys, and again, data processing takes a few months to get the data out. So the data comes out as soon as it's available from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There is no really real-time data that we can share. There is some online job posting services that we have access to, but other than that, the data comes out as soon as it can.
Okay, thank you, Frank. There's a question about are there any life sciences ecosystems projects in progress? And I can tell you that at BioNJ we are working, we see our role as an aggregator, a coalescer, if you will, of the community to a certain extent. And we are looking at exactly that at all times. How can we make sure that we are being the connector, bringing the parties together, making sure that individuals know individuals, and that companies are working with companies and other institutions in New Jersey. We see it as a constant work in progress. But you will see some thoughts, some more specific thoughts around that from BioNJ in the near future. That is, frankly, one of our critical strategic initiatives to do what we can to help support and develop the ecosystem that clearly already exists. But there, as we always say at BioNJ, we can always do more. We can always do better. So.
And that's a huge task too, Debbie. I mean, because it's not just you're trying to keep innovation in New Jersey. We're trying to spur economic development, trying to break down barriers between translational research and how difficult it is to start a clinical trial, which is why you mentioned that trying to put a template in place. And there are many different aspects of the ecosystem that we can do to to break down barriers. But a healthy New Jersey means a healthy everywhere else, and so the more we can break down barriers, I think the better it'll be for the overall ecosystem.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So let's see, given that so many biotech companies are virtual, does it make sense to encourage the formation of service companies that would provide services and employment with New Jersey's talent?
I think I'll take that. The concept of the virtual company for biotech is really a efficient capital strategy, right? So you don't have too many fixed costs with the organization. You're hiring service providers that can help obtain data to get to another inflection point from which you can use that to raise more funding to continue the development status. CROs play a big part in that virtual process because they're providing services But I think I'm not sure about. I don't know that I have a view of whether it makes sense to encourage the formation of CROs, because there are plenty of CROs out there that can handle the requirements and the needs that exist today.
Okay. So we have a question here. How many individuals come from other states to work in New Jersey because the cost of living is cheaper? Do we have numbers to address how many and potential loss we have because of it?
I just wanted to say I do not have sort of numbers off the top of my head to address that. That is an issue that is, I think, constantly discussed and studied. There is a resource I wanted to mention. The Census Bureau has an online resource called On the Map, which you can use to identify the number of people who reside in one county or state and work in another, and you can define areas of interest yourself, or simply choose states or counties of residence or employment, and look at how many people are flowing across border. In other words, who reside in one state and work in another, or you can do it county to county. It's a very interesting and easy to use resource. So without knowing the numbers off the top of my head, I would suggest taking a look at that. Again, it's Census Bureau's On the Map.
Great. Thank you, Will. So here's a question. What can New Jersey do to encourage startup activity versus funded biotechnology companies? And again, it's important to keep all of the different cylinders fired. So I would, there are some things that we're talking about here at BioNJ that you'll be seeing rolling out in the near future, including initiatives around trying to develop the entrepreneurial culture to facilitate entrepreneurship. But again, we are trying to work with the community and hear what the community has to say. So if anyone has any specific ideas in that regard, or any of the other things that we're talking about here today, we would welcome your sending them our way. Again, at BioNJ at BioNJ.org. So we are looking at the questions. I hope that I think we've answered most of what's up there. There's a question, is there a listing of the companies that went into the study? So if you take a look at the BioNJ website, we have our member companies listed there. We're not at liberty to share the companies beyond that, and we can't share contact information, but I would definitely encourage you to visit our website for that and other resources as well. Okay. We'll stay for one more moment here before we wrap up, and just to see if there are any last-minute questions or if we missed someone's question. Okay. Okay. I think we're getting to the end here. Erica, did we get any other questions that came in? Okay. Okay, it doesn't look like it that we see. So with that concludes our webinar. Again, the report can be found at BioNJ.org. If you'd like to communicate with us, please don't hesitate at BioNJ.org. We thank our partners, EY, the Blaustein School at Rutgers, the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and our presenters, Tony, John, Will, and Frank. We thank all of you for joining us and look forward to seeing you at our BioNJ CEO Summit on October 20th, 21st. And we would close by saying, go New Jersey, and thank you all. Have a great day.